Welcome on in, everybody, here to the Postgame Pod at Auburn Undercover. Nathan King, joined by Patrick Bingham here in the Georgia press room. You'll notice obviously the Bulldog logo behind us. Had to get kind of creative, not out on the court today because they are cleaning off with leaf blowers. So that tends to be a little bit loud. I remember they did that last time here. Patrick, an absolutely thrilling way for Auburn to open SEC play. The only thing this game lacked, if you're Auburn, was a win. This one had absolutely everything. And had a miraculous shot. And it did not have defense. Neither team had defense. It was a miraculous shot by Kevin Overton to send it to overtime. Georgia led by 4, and it just was almost like you just heave it up there at the end if you're Keyshawn Hall, and they did the biggest no-no, which is you foul there on a 3-point play, and Keyshawn Hall obviously misses the free throw. Kevin Overton with 0.7, less than a second, able to gather himself and shoot a baseline jumper to send Auburn to overtime, but not able to prevail in the overtime period. They were up by 3 at one point. Kevin Overton had 2 big shots early on in the overtime period, but ultimately defense is what causes this loss for Auburn. Jeremiah Wilkinson for Georgia was phenomenal with 31 points. Smurf Millender adds 24 as well. But as Stephen Pearl said in his postgame, Patrick, I mean, the theme of this one was one-on-one defense. We knew this was going to be a guard-driven, it's a guard attack for Georgia. And simply put, I mean, Auburn just couldn't stay in front of their man on the perimeter, and dribbling past those guys just sort of broke everything down for Auburn's defense.
Yeah, and as much as like basketball is a game of runs, and obviously this was a game of runs and momentum, it almost felt like it was a game of like individual player runs. Sure. I mean, Kevin obviously like made that shot, but then he was obviously still hot, made the first few shots of overtime. Blue Kane had a big fourth or second half. So it was a bunch of different players. But I think the thing that I continue to think about is like Georgia beat you with the threes, and that they were ranked in the 200s coming into the game. And it's like, if you had told me they were going to win that stat, I was going to struggle to think Auburn had won. That being said, Auburn made – I mean, you score 100 points. Everyone makes shots. But it's the defense at the end of the day that you just – continuing, and for so much of that second half, it was like Auburn was down by 1, and they kept missing a shot. Georgia would go score, and then Auburn would answer, but they were down by 1 again. And it was just like you couldn't get over that hump. They obviously, like in a crazy way, did. Yeah. But again, it was just that defense.
Yeah, Steven said it after the game. I mean, you put yourself in position to win this game so many times. I meant to look it up afterwards, what Auburn shot in this game when they were trailing by exactly 1. It might have been like 0 of 13 because there was one possession where they go down. They had 4 shots all at the rim with offensive rebounds, couldn't get it, missed a couple 3-pointers, had an 0 for 2 trip at the foul line. All of those were with an opportunity to take the lead. They had an offensive lull there in the second half. I think that was the stretch that really killed them. They missed 10 straight shots in the second half. That's what really came back.
And yet they still had a chance to win.
And yet at the end of the game, they still have an opportunity to go to overtime. It is worth noting they were shorthanded in overtime, so they didn't have Tahaad Pettiford. He fouled out at the end of regulation, scores 25 points. We'll touch on him a little bit later. And Filip Jovic quickly fouled out in overtime. Great game for him. 10 rebounds. He had a double-double, 5 offensive rebounds mixed in there. Auburn out-rebounded Georgia, which entered this game top 10 nationally in total rebounding rate. Auburn out-rebounded Georgia by 15 in this one. And Stephen Pearl went back to that in his postgame as another way to say this isn't about size. He sort of said, I wish I had the quote from him on radio because he was a little bit more snarky with it, but it's like he said, he's tired of talking about the lack of size this team has because that was not the issue for them in this game, as evidenced by their rebounding. It was the fact that they were beaten off the dribble so often, and it was different guys for Georgia at different moments. Blue Kane, you mentioned at the end of regulation. Smurf Millender for me was the MVP of the game for Georgia until Wilkinson at the very end came down with it. And so, Auburn's guards were clearly outplayed in this one, and that perimeter defense remains a really big issue.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing, is that it wasn't down low. It wasn't because Keyshawn Murphy, I guess, was injured. He wasn't 100%.
It seemed like it.
I mean, that's kind of – Pearl didn't say anything official after the game. But, I mean, even though Philip was having a great game, and that's probably why he didn't get beat so bad down low, it was the guard play. And, yes, Auburn was able to answer it. But, like, even for me, like, offensively, it's the weird, like, you score 100 points. The offense wasn't the problem. Steven said the offense was fine. But in a game you lost by a couple, you missed over
22 3-pointers, yep.
Yeah, you missed a bunch of 3-pointers. You missed a bunch of foul shots. Yep. And so it's just kind of like, yes, like, you still were able to score a lot of the points, and a lot of the stats are skewed because you played 5 extra minutes if you just look at it like that. But you just couldn't make the defensive play. You just couldn't make that last shot, and then they did, but it just ultimately didn't play out.
I mean, it felt like you're saying on both ends of the floor. It just felt like Georgia. I was talking to Jordan Hill, right over here, who works for our Georgia 24/7 site. It felt like Georgia won this game. Like they went out and took it. They went out and made the winning plays. You just here and there 4 or 5 different possessions where you sort of winced at what Auburn did, whether that was on the defensive end when they let Santo Ciro go all the way back on the that was just obviously a miscommunication, whether Sebastian Williams Adams just didn't play that properly. The possession at the end of I believe this is the end of overtime, not regulation, when Keyshawn Hall goes down and just kind of gets trapped in the corner and has to make a pass down low. He's double teamed, and like Steve Pearl said postgame, nobody moved, and it just was a pass that had no chance. Tahaad Pettiford was really good in this one for Auburn, 25 points. Although he faded down the stretch, he missed all 6 of his 3-pointers in the second half. Again, like you're saying, just 1 or 2 of those goes a different way. It could be a different result. But the big story with Pettiford in this game is he comes off the bench for the first time for Auburn this season. It was very clear early on it wasn't injury related. Like it was obvious. Magwood picked up 2 quick fouls, and Pettiford was in the game and looked like himself right away. We knew it was probably some sort of team decision, and Stephen Pearl says after the game it was a, quote, failure to meet team standards. And Stephen kind of used that question about Tahaad and that explanation as an opportunity, it seemed like to me, to sort of challenge the team. He said when they came back from Purdue, it was a little bit more, hey guys, we got to tighten up. He mentioned get to meetings on time, things like that. And he said about Tahaad, look, this is the team leader. His exact quote was, he's got to stop putting me in positions to make difficult decisions. So I think it's a minor thing right now that people probably shouldn't latch onto too much, but it does sort of underscore that Stephen Pearl's not going to back down in terms of his challenge of this team in a lot of different ways. He's challenging them on defense. He's obviously challenging them off the court to be a little bit tighter. And so room to improve for this Auburn team for sure. I think you saw a lot of positives in this game. You saw a lot of things where you were just 1 or 2 possessions away from getting this one, but yet at the same time, just like we said after non-conference play, it feels like there's just still so much unknown and still so much room to grow for this team.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I think it can go both ways of like, oh, you were so close. You make literally 1 more foul shot, you win the game. I mean, like, there's so many different, like, you're so close, but at the same time, it's like
glaring issues.
There was glaring issues, and Georgia was, just a couple shots away from it really not being close either, because you missed those, like, 10 straight shots or whatever. Yeah. And so it's kind of like, how can you, I guess, meet in the middle of that? But that's just where we go from here. Is now you're on to Texas A&M, and can you take advantage? I think the thing that hurts the most from this, because we were talking about it, I guess, after the Queens game, was like this, and obviously it turned into that kind of game, but like this is when you really could have stole, and you're obviously unable to. Georgia has a really good team. Their offense is as advertised, but at the same time, like there's so many things where you're looking back, like if we could have just done this one thing, we come out with the win, and we get to fix all the issues off of that. Yeah,
that same conversation we had, you mentioned that, after Queens, about SEC play, and in particular this beginning stretch of SEC play. It still applies. We knew this game was going to be really difficult. We knew this was going to be one of the toughest games for them early on. Probably, this is, in terms of venue and team, this might be the toughest. Obviously, Arkansas is analytically and the way they look, they're probably a better team than Georgia, but you get them at home. And so, obviously not the end of the world for Auburn to drop this one. They got 17 SEC games left. Of course, it's not the end of the world. But as you mentioned, it will be nice for them to have an opportunity to get right at home. And I think those are a couple games next week that, look, Arkansas's, Texas A&M has had their struggles. Arkansas is a much better team than the Aggies. But you would love to get some wind back in your sails there, because right now you're feeling like your last few opportunities to play away from home, particularly on defense, you've just had a lot of struggles. And so that's obviously first and foremost. If Stephen Pearl didn't make it clear enough, which if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you can go watch his press conference as well, that remains their focus. He said before the year, early on in the year, they needed to be top 50, top 60 analytically in defense, something like that. And they were number 78 before this game, and they're probably going further backwards. And so that remains the struggle right now for Auburn basketball. 104-100. They dropped this game in overtime in Athens here in Stegman Coliseum. For Patrick Bingham, I am Nathan King. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the Auburn Undercover YouTube channel. Be sure to head over to auburnundercover.com. Got tons of transfer portal coverage going on. Lots of transfer graphics from Patrick you will see in the coming days, including some that are making their way to the roster. So good job for you. Yeah. Eat your heart out, Auburn, for the transfer returning graphics, because the roster returning graphics, Patrick's got some of those as well. So appreciate you guys for joining us. Be sure to head over to auburnundercover.com. We will talk to you guys later.